was late afternoon in a quiet village. The dust hung low in the light. The shade of olive trees cooled the space between houses. And near the edge of the crowd, a small group had gathered. Jesus was speaking, not from a platform, not from a temple, not even from a place of power. He was seated, on a stone perhaps, or on the edge of a low wall, his robe folded beneath him, his sandals worn with miles. Children lingered nearby, curled at their parents' feet. Fishermen and tax collectors sat with knees drawn to their chests. And a few men in long robes, Pharisees, stood just a little off to the side, arms crossed, eyes watching closely. Some in the crowd were there for healing. Some came for comfort. Some just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. But today, Jesus wasn't healing. He wasn't feeding. He wasn't walking on waves. He was telling a story. That's how Jesus worked sometimes. He didn't always give people rules. He didn't always explain himself directly. Instead, he told parables, simple stories, slowly told, like seeds dropped into the soil of the heart. And this story would be one of the most beloved. It wasn't long or loud, but it would live in the hearts of generations. It would echo through centuries. It would travel across time, from scrolls to sermons to bedtime whispers. A story of two sons, a story of a father, a story of leaving and returning, a story about what happens when we come home, broken, and find arms still open. But Jesus didn't rush the words. He looked at the crowd first. Some were leaning in, some were looking away, and some, the Pharisees, were whispering to each other. This man eats with sinners. He welcomes them. Doesn't he know who they are? They were puzzled by his kindness, bothered by his grace, confused by the joy in his voice. When he spoke to people they thought were unworthy. So Jesus looked at them, and with gentleness in his eyes, he began. There was a man who had 2 sons. That's all he said at first. But the way he said it, soft, clear, slow, like he was inviting them into something sacred. And so the crowd leaned in, the Pharisees quieted, even the children stopped fidgeting. Because when Jesus told a story, it wasn't just a lesson, it was a doorway. And now we will walk through that doorway with him. Tonight, we will listen not just to what happens, but to how it feels. We'll walk with the younger son as he pulls away from home. We'll travel with him to far-off places. We'll feel the cold of hunger and the silence of regret. We'll watch the father wait and run and forgive. And we'll look into the heart of the older brother too, faithful but closed. This isn't just a story of one lost child. It's a story for everyone who's ever wondered, and everyone who's ever felt overlooked. So, rest now. This is not a fast story. It moves like a stream through a quiet valley, like a song you've always known, even if you've forgotten the words. And somewhere Along the path, you may just find yourself. Maybe you're the younger son, tired, empty, longing for home. Or maybe the older one, faithful but aching to feel seen. Or maybe you are the one at the gate, watching, waiting, hoping someone you love will come back. Whoever you are, wherever you are, this story is for you. Because the Father is still watching the road. And when he sees you coming, even far off, he will run. Sleep softly, dear heart. The journey is about to begin. In the next part, we'll meet the father and his two sons. We'll feel the warmth of the house, the rhythm of ordinary life, and the early restlessness that begins in one son's soul. The road is waiting, but so is home.
There was once a man with two sons. He lived in the countryside, where the hills rose like sleeping animals, soft and green, and the morning mist touched the ground like breath. His home sat on a slope, with vines curling around its stone walls and olive trees dancing quietly in the wind. He had not always lived there. He had built it. With his own hands, one brick at a time, he had shaped this home. Years ago, when he was a young man, he came to this land with hope and dreams. He planted trees, tended fields, and watched things grow, not only vines and wheat, but also his family. And now he was older. His beard had grown gray. His eyes were lined with sun and time. But there was still strength in his hands and peace in his voice. And he had two sons. The older one was steady. He woke early with the roosters, washed his hands at the basin, and went to the fields. He knew the land like the back of his hand, the soil's moods, the strength of each tree, the rhythm of the seasons. He didn't talk much, but he always did what was expected. He cared for the house, respected his father, followed the rules. To some, he might have seemed distant, but inside there was a longing to be seen, not just for what he did, but for who he was. The younger son was different. He was bright, curious, full of energy and questions. He laughed often, ran fast, and dreamed of faraway places. He loved the smell of spices from other lands. He listened when travelers passed through town and told stories of big cities and wide roads. And sometimes, when the stars came out, he would lie awake in his bed, wondering what else was out there. The home was warm, the fields were safe, the family was kind, but in his heart, a little seed of restlessness had started to grow. Their father loved them both. He knew them, not just their chores or their habits, but their hearts. He knew the older one's loyalty and his silence. He knew the younger one's spark and his ache for more. And though he never forced them to stay close, his heart beat with hope that they always would. He was the kind of man who remembered birthdays. The home was simple, but there was joy. Every evening, the family ate together. Bread was passed, stories were shared, laughter mixed with the hum of crickets. Sometimes guests would come, neighbors, workers, old friends. The house never ran out of food. The wine was sweet. The roof kept the rain away. It wasn't a kingdom, but it was enough. Still, the younger son began to drift. He still came to dinner, still laughed, still worked the fields when asked, but his eyes wandered. He watched the road more often now. He lingered at the edge of town when traders came through. He asked questions, small at first, then louder. What is it like in this city? How far away is the sea? How do people make their own way in the world? And slowly, that seed of restlessness grew into something larger. Not anger, not rebellion, just desire, a longing to choose, to live, to try something on his own. And one morning, with the mist still clinging to the fields, he spoke. He found his father in the courtyard, watering the figs. "Father," he said quietly, "I want my share of the inheritance now." The words dropped like a stone into a quiet pond. Not shouted, not cruel, but firm. His father looked at him, not with anger, not with surprise. He had seen this moment coming, not because he had wished for it, but because he knew his son. He saw the spark in his eyes, the youth, the ache, the pull of a world yet unexplored. He paused, set the clay jar down, and said softly, "Are you sure?" The boy nodded, his hands clenched, his feet ready to walk. And so, the father said nothing more. He went into the house, opened his records, and gave the younger son his share. It wasn't just money. It was land, livestock, clothing, things passed down through generations. It was a piece of his heart, of his work, of his legacy. But the father gave it freely, not with guilt, not with manipulation, but with love, because he knew. Real love never forces someone to stay. It simply keeps the door open in case they return. The older brother watched from the shadows. He didn't speak, but his heart burned. He had worked, he had stayed, and now this. He said nothing, but the silence grew heavy between them. The younger son packed quickly. He filled bags, counted coins, saddled his donkey. He hugged his mother, clasped his father's hand, nodded stiffly to his brother, and without looking back, he walked down the hill. The sun was just beginning to rise behind him, and ahead lay the distant country. But the father stayed by the gate. He didn't call after him. He didn't chase. He just watched, not with judgment, but with hope. The house felt quieter that night. The chair at the table was empty, the laughter softer, but the door was left open, because the father knew something his son did not yet understand. The world may be wide, but not everything out there feeds the soul. And sometimes a heart must go far before it learns where home really is. Sleep now. Let your breath slow like the sun setting behind the hills. You've met the family. You've seen the moment the story shifted. You've felt the Father's grace and the Son's hunger for more. But the journey is just beginning. In the next part, we'll follow the younger son as he walks into the world, eyes wide, heart open, coins in his pocket, dreams in his chest. And the road is waiting. The road stretched out before him, long and open, warm beneath his sandals. It wound between golden fields and over hills that caught the wind. To the left, wildflowers swayed. To the right, birds sang over olive trees. And every step the young man took felt like freedom. He had never walked so far from home alone before. Never chosen his own direction, never felt so untethered. The weight of a coin pouch tugged gently at his waist. His share of the inheritance, full and heavy. And behind his ribs beat a heart full of wonder. He did not walk fast. He paused often to drink from quiet streams, to taste figs from roadside trees, to listen to voices in passing towns. He asked questions. What lies beyond this hill? How far is the sea? Do the cities really glow at night? And strangers answered him. with smiles, maps traced in dust, and stories passed between sips of wine. At night he lay beneath the stars, the same stars he had watched from his room at home, but now they looked different. They stretched farther, shone brighter, maybe because there were no walls around him, maybe because he felt, for the first time, truly his own. He whispered promises to the wind. I will build something new. I will become someone great. I will never go back. And the wind only listened. Days passed, then weeks. The hills smoothed into plains. The air grew warmer. The road widened with tracks for merchants and camels. And finally, just as his feet had begun to ache, just as his eyes were tired from dust, he saw it. The city. It rose out of the earth like a dream. Stone walls, tall and proud, banners flapping in the wind, gates open to strangers, the hum of music, footsteps, and life filling the streets. He had never seen anything like it, and in his chest, his heart whispered, "This is it." This was the distant country, the place beyond the orchard walls, beyond the family table, beyond expectation. And now he would live. He found a small room near the edge of the city. It wasn't much, just a bed, a basin, and a window. But to him, it felt like a kingdom. He lit a candle at night and watched its flicker in the glass. He heard voices in the street, laughter, music, arguments, songs. He bought new clothes, looser, finer, dyed with deep color. He ate food that melted on his tongue, spiced dates, fresh bread, roasted lamb. He drank wine that made his head light and his steps careless. He made friends easily. People liked his joy, his stories, his generosity. He was not the farmer's son here. He was not the younger brother. He was new. He visited the market each morning. Coins clinked in his hand as he picked out whatever he pleased. He rode horses through the city gates just for the thrill. He listened to musicians in the square, tossing silver into their cups, and every night he celebrated. He was welcomed into homes, sat at tables covered in linen and light, laughed at jokes he didn't always understand, shared dreams about tomorrow, and if he noticed how fast the coins were leaving his pouch, he said nothing. After all, wasn't this what he had wanted? But sometimes, on quiet nights, when the candles burned low and the streets were hushed, he would look out his window and remember the hills, the sound of his father's voice, the smell of the fields after rain, the steady rhythm of home, and something in his chest would ache He tried new things, traveled short distances beyond the city, danced, drank, laughed louder. He chased every bright thing that came near. But over time, he had to squint harder to see the stars. The wine didn't taste as sweet. The friends didn't stay as long, and his pouch grew lighter. Still, he didn't worry. There would be more. He'd find new work. He'd figure something out. For now, he would keep going, keep enjoying, keep proving to himself that he had chosen well. But the road that once whispered promise would soon whisper warning, and the distant country, once filled with color, would slowly fade. But not yet, not tonight. Tonight, he still walks the city with a smile, still feels the warmth of firelight on his skin, still tells himself that he is free, even if freedom is starting to feel just a little bit empty. And back home, the father still waits by the gate, not angry, not panicked, just steady, because love does not rush the journey. It simply keeps the light on. Sleep now. You've walked far with the younger son. You've tasted what he tasted. You've felt the pull of wonder and the ache of distance. But the story is not finished. Tomorrow, we will follow him deeper into the city, into the high days of his wealth, the slow turning of his joy, and the moment the light begins to fade. The journey is long, but the way home is still waiting.